Hi, I'm Lynda Downing, and I'm here to talk about my AEP 880 Module 4, Culturally Responsive Instruction and Behavior Support Practices. So culturally responsive instruction, what is that exactly? Culturally responsive pedagogy is a student-centered approach to teaching in which the student's unique cultural strengths are identified and nurtured to promote student achievement and a sense of well-being about the student's cultural place in the world. So here are 10 culturally responsive instructional methods. 1. Create a student-centered classroom culture which welcomes all learners. 2. Allow students to collaborate and work in groups. 3. Students support working together for the success of the entire class, such as peer tutoring. 4. Provide student choice on assignments. 5. Intentionally address visual, tactile, and auditory learners in lessons. 6. Communicate and work with parents or guardians on a regular basis in their native language. 7. Present content in multiple forms to use explicit instruction in small groups. 8. Use instructional materials that relate to a variety of cultures. 9. Create lessons that connect to your students' cultures in daily lives. 10. Include multiple question formats on assessments. So here's some information I thought I needed to include. Culturally responsive practices involve utilizing the cultural knowledge, life experiences, and learning styles of culturally and linguistically diverse students to make learning more relevant and effective for them. By building upon the knowledge and strengths of students bring with them from their homes and communities, culturally responsive practice validates who they are and sets high expectations for behavior and learning. So let's talk about some behavior support practices and what those are. Social emotional learning, or SEL, interventions are those that include content to equip students with the necessary information to engage in emotion recognition and management, positive goal setting and achievement, empathic thinking, positive relationship development and maintenance, and responsible decision making. Culturally responsive SEL uses the lived experiences and frames of reference of students to enforce and teach SEL competencies. Incorporating student interests, views, and wants into already existing SEL programming and developing new SEL programming may increase buy-in and engagement from the student population. So here are 10 behavioral support practices. So educators, 1. Design their classroom to provide structure. 2. Develop and explicitly teach routines and expectations. 3. Prompt and pre-correct for desired behaviors. 4. Plan and deliver engaging instruction that includes high rates of opportunities for students to respond. 5. Provide behavior-specific feedback, praise, or corrections contingent on students' social behaviors and academic responses. 6. Provide student choice on assignments. 7. Allow students the opportunity to work collaboratively. 8. Use explicit instruction of academic skills and use small groups. 9. Use a student-centered classroom environment. 10. Implement a continuum of consequences to acknowledge appropriate behavior and discourage inappropriate behavior. So here's another piece of information that I found very valid. Students of teachers who follow lesson plans generally have higher levels of academic achievement and lower levels of problem behaviors compared to students in classrooms with teachers who do not follow lesson plans. Additionally, academic achievement is enhanced and problem behavior reduced when teachers prepare scripted or explicit lessons inclusive of A. How they will explain the content, B. Which questions will be asked, including the expected correct responses from students, and C. Implementation with fidelity. So here is a quote that I thought was very meaningful to what we're talking about. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I will learn. So let's talk a little bit about our district, the Buckland School District. Buckland Schools does not have a culturally diverse student population at this time. However, that does not mean that teachers are not using culturally responsive instructional methods. Most, if not all, of our teachers use each of the 10 instructional methods listed in the presentation because best practice methods benefit all students. Where our district does struggle is with behavior supports. Most of our teachers practice the 10 behavior methods listed in the presentation, but not all teachers are successful. Our student clientele has changed rapidly over the last 5 years. Some teachers have struggled to keep up. Buckland Schools does employ an instructional coach and a Title I teacher. The instructional coach is new and only part-time. She has worked with each teacher on these issues. The Title I teacher does provide student services for the students that qualify, but she does not work directly with the teachers on how to best serve those students. The district does contract with an interlocal special education cooperative, Southwest Kansas Area Cooperative, for special education services. SKACD does provide a behavior team who will aid with providing support for those students whose inappropriate behaviors are more frequent and severe. Unfortunately, our school district has not adopted a district-wide or even school-wide behavior support system. Buckland Schools has made many changes in the last few years. A district-wide behavior support system has been on the list for the district leadership team. Hopefully, we will be able to start that soon. So according to the research, accessible learning environments that provide opportunity for robust literacy-rich experiences, interactivity, and exploration of thought should be inclusive of teachers, students, families, and communities. When a classroom has success with a culturally responsive literacy and learning practice, powerful ripple effects will occur not only for the child, but the child's family, school family, and the community at large. When a community embraces the importance of a culturally responsive classroom and school environment, everyone can benefit. All children in general and special education can grow into community members that respect their diversity, learning, and cultural differences, and this will pay dividends for success in their future. Teachers and service providers must attend to all students' behavior needs, try to incorporate these needs into classroom daily routines, and avoid punitive measures that are counterproductive. So what do I personally think are the most effective methods and the easiest to implement? First, create a student-centered classroom culture which welcomes all learners, allows students to collaborate and work in groups. Students support working together for the success of the entire class or peer tutoring. Provide student choices on assignments. Present content in multiple forms. Use explicit instruction on small groups. Develop and explicitly teach routines and expectations. Prompt and pre-correct for desired behaviors. Plan and deliver engaging instruction that includes high rates of opportunities for children to respond. Provide behavior-specific feedback, praise, and corrections, contingent on students' social behaviors and academic responses. Implement a continuum of consequences to acknowledge appropriate behavior and discourage inappropriate behavior. I chose to bold and italicize some of these particular methods because as a veteran teacher and a veteran special education teacher, I found that these were the most beneficial, needed, and easiest to implement. First, we have explicit instruction in small groups. Small groups, when you're dealing with children that struggle with behavior, is really a great tool. It allows them to have the necessary adult attention and is much less disruptive when you're teaching to a whole class environment. And prompt and pre-correct for desired behaviors. I also included this. If you have children who are definitely struggling with behaviors, instead of constantly addressing the behaviors that they are not showing, that might be not beneficial to your classroom, a great way to do that is when you're providing instruction or direction to students, is to point out a student who is doing what you need them to do. Such as, if you don't know what you need to do, look at Tommy's desk. Tommy has everything on his desk that I need him to have. And that is a great way to use a child that's modeling. And you will find that children who struggle with behaviors are very willing to comply with that, especially if they can follow along with the rest of their peers. Plan and deliver engaging instruction that includes high rates of opportunities for children to respond. Children need to be engaged. And the best way to do that is to make sure that they have the opportunity to respond to the teaching. You're teaching, especially whole classroom instruction. So that may be pulling sticks, calling names, however it is that you want to manage that. That is a great way to make sure that kids are engaged in what you're doing, and it definitely reduces some inappropriate behaviors that you're trying to extinguish. Provide behavior-specific feedback, contingent on a student's social behaviors and academic responsive. And so instead of saying, you're just doing a great job, or thank you for being a great 7th grader today, you need to say something that's very specific. I really appreciate that you got out your pencil when I asked you to. Thank you for following my directions. A lot of students prefer that to be done quietly, especially if they're struggling with behaviors. All right. So my big concept for this particular presentation is, I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better. So here are my references, the 10 articles that I chose to use for this presentation. Alas, thanks for taking the time to listen to my presentation.